Der neue Horror der Realität des Webs hat begonnen. Wegen Algorithmusgründen übersetze ich den Buchstaben X mit Y in gewissen Abschnitten. Eine neue, im Labor entwickelte Krankheit aus China, Krankheit Y, hat bei humanisierten Mäusen eine Todesrate von 100% durch Infektion des Nervensystems erreicht. Dies und mehr in diesem Video.
Politik und Wirtschaft. Extra Talk.
Hier ist ein Ausschnitt aus Dr. John Campbells Video von vor 3 Tagen. Es ist jetzt leider gelöscht.
Now, last week there was published some really concerning research from China. What the researchers did was they got a virus from a pangolin. That's these charming little creatures that are so abused throughout Eastern Asia particularly. They took a virus from the pangolin and they cultured it in cells in the laboratory. And they then infected mice with it. And it killed all of the mice that had infected through brain infection. So they've generated this new virus that kills 100% of mice it's infected with, but it gets worse. Because the mice that were infected were humanized mice. Now these are called transgenic mice. In other words, they were given some human genes. And they were given human ACE receptor genes that were expressed by the mouse. So these are essentially human ACE receptors in genes. And it was a coronavirus from the pangolin, and it killed 100% of the mice that were infected. And these are the things that they are jiggling around with in laboratories. This is absolute madness. And it needs to be banned yesterday as far as I'm concerned.
Also ein neuer Plan, um uns alle einzusperren und zu verarschen, zu vergiften und uns das Geld sowie die Freiheit wegzunehmen. Ganz gruselig ist auch, dass man in den Mainstream-Medien bereits hören darf, dass es offenbar bereits einen Impfstoff gibt oder sie zumindest an dessen Entwicklung arbeiten.
The British government has unveiled a new vaccine research facility where scientists are working to prevent future pandemics. It's located at Porton Down, a high-security research facility best known for its work on chemical warfare. Experts are preparing for what is known as Disease X, or the next pandemic virus. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes was given rare access to the facility.
The delicate task of protecting the nation's health. This is one of the laboratories at Porton Down where scientists are analysing current threats, new variants of COVID for example, and trying to identify new ones. Inside these purpose-built labs, more than 200 scientists working for the UK Health Security Agency are helping to develop and test vaccines against a range of diseases. It's vital work to keep us all safe.
We've got in many respects the toughest job in the world, which is to protect health against infectious diseases and environmental hazards. And it is tough because we know that the risks of new and emerging infections, including those of pandemic potential, is increasing.
For decades, scientists at Porton Down have been involved in medical research, as well as the work on chemical and biological warfare, for which the centre is perhaps better known. During the pandemic, laboratories like this one played an absolutely vital role in assessing how effective the vaccines were in combating the coronavirus, and that work continues today. But as well as monitoring how effective existing vaccines are against new COVID variants, the new Vaccine Development and Evaluation Centre is looking at emerging threats for which no vaccine yet exists. One of those is Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, a virus that is spread by the bite of an infected tick and is fatal in about 30% of cases. A serious outbreak occurred in Afghanistan in 2017, but the disease is widespread across Africa, Asia, the Middle East and the Balkans. Changes to climate and the way we live mean viruses like this one could find a way to the UK. But equally, the next pandemic could be caused by a virus that has yet to be identified, what experts call Disease X. Dangers known and unknown. These scientists will be working to make sure we're prepared for both.
Wie ist es überhaupt möglich, dass es bereits einen Impfstoff gegen Krankheit Y gibt? Diejenigen, die zu Team Realität gehören, werden an diesem Punkt wissen, dass sie ihre Labore für biologische Waffen abdecken, die das alles verursacht haben. Berichten aus China zufolge tritt eine neue Krankheit Y auf, bei der die im Labor getesteten Mäuse eine Abtötungsrate von 100% aufweisen. Gleichzeitig baut China mobile Krematorien auf. Wie interpretieren Sie das? Hier ein Video, in dem Gates darüber spricht. Dieser Clip wurde vor 12 Monaten erstellt.
You know, they need probably 8-9 months to get the vaccination levels up. And, you know, so every day is a fight. You know, Beijing will be an interesting front in that war.
You could have a zoonotic, that is a virus that jumps from an animal to humans, that attacks young people, that attacks everyone, that is very lethal. I mean, you know, something like AIDS, for example, these are all zoonotic diseases. In some ways we got unlucky if you're older, but in some ways we got lucky that, for example, people under 18 really don't get it much.
Yeah, smallpox, which is the only disease we've ever eradicated, had about a 30% death rate. And so, you know, that's a factor of 100 worse. You know, bubonic plague had a death rate of about 40%. So awful pathogens can show up. Even in the case of flu, there have been some variants that are even more fatal than the Spanish flu was. The good news is that we've never seen since 1918 something that combined an ability to transmit very effectively and this very high fatality rate. I mean, HIV is kind of a weird one because that's not respiratory, it's sexually transmitted. It's amazing given that it's gotten as big. It's, you know, that by every definition is a pandemic. It's this weird thing where you live with it and you're transmitting it for quite a number of years, 7 or 8 years, before you are visibly symptomatic. Now, the test could tell, but that long period before you have symptoms, the latency period, was so long that it starts out in the 1950s and the world doesn't even realize what's going on until the 80s. And then by the 90s, we have therapeutics, but we don't even have a vaccine. So I do think it'll be a respiratory spread. And so that helps a bit in terms of, okay, masks or things that you inhale that block infection. Those types of innovations are worth inventing.
Wer fördert diese Geschichte über Krankheit Y wirklich und warum wollen Sie, dass die Öffentlichkeit ein hypothetisches Szenario fürchtet, gegen das wir nichts unternehmen können? Eines der Diskussionsthemen am 17. Januar beim WEF in Davos die Krankheit Y, die 10-mal mehr Menschen töten kann als das Coronavirus.
Politik und Wirtschaft. Extra Talk.
So in the session we just attended here at the Economic Forum, I think there was a sense of relief actually in your frankness. You brought up some issues that others are reluctant to bring up.
Always. All the religious groups are against me because I'm talking about population. They want more souls, I want less on the planet.